So this is the last chapter of the first term, that is the ninth chapter, soil. So we all know that soil. What is soil? Yes, soil is very much important in our life, as if soil is not there, plants cannot be grown. If plants are not grown, we will not get food, fruits, vegetable to eat. The animals which eat plants will not get their food. So if the animals which eat plants they will die, then the animals which eat other animals they will not get food. So this, because of this, what will happen, there will be no living organism on the earth's surface. So that is why it is said that soil is very important, is the most important natural resource. It's not made by any human beings, it occurs naturally on the earth's surface. Now it provides anchorage, means it holds the plant onto the earth's surface. And it also helps to supply water and nutrients. How? Because the soil contains different nutrients, and when water is put in the soil, it is absorbed by the roots of the plant and is sent to each and every part of the plant. So it is also a home for many organisms. We know that many small insects, worms, some mm, some animals like rats and all, they live inside the soil. So it is a home for many organisms. Soil is essential for agriculture. As I said earlier, agriculture we know is growing different types of plants for vegetables, fruits, clothes, shelters, many things. So that is why soil is thus an inseparable part of our life. The earthy fragrance. So when the first rain falls on the dry soil, a smell comes out from that soil, and that smell is very refreshing. Okay. So here the first topic here is soil teeming with life. Yes, soil teeming with life means it's soil and life are in a team. We cannot separate them from each other. Okay, so that is why soil teeming with life, and there are many living organisms which live inside the soil. So there is life inside soil. So here in this table, they have given one example that if you take a garden soil, if you take the soil from the garden, then plants which you will find in that soil is grass, animals which you will find is ant, and if any different observation you can see, you can write it down. Similarly, if you take it from the roadside, from a construction area, everywhere the plants, animals, and some different observation you will see in the soil at different places. Now we know that polythene bags and plastics pollute the soil. Why? Because they kill the organisms living in the soil. Because they don't allow the air to pass through. So they stop the air from going inside, mean going deep inside the soil. And the organisms which live inside the soil, they're not able to breathe. And that is why they will die. So that is why it is written they also kill the organisms living in the soil. So, waste products or chemicals should always be put into the soil after treating it. Means after removing that harmful chemicals from that waste, the waste can be dumped into the soil. Then it will not cause any harm. Or if harm is caused, then it will be in very less amount. Okay. Now the next topic here is soil profile. Now there are different layers of the soil. This layer of the soil we will find when we take a handful of soil and put it in the water and stir it properly. You will see different layers coming up. You have to put that glass of water with that soil for some time without disturbing it. Then what you will see these different layers. In the top you will see humus, then water, then clay, then sand, and then gravel. Gravel is the small pebbles or stones which are found in the soil. Okay. Now, what is humus? The top layer that is found. What is humus? So, humus is what? The rotting dead matter. Means we can see rotten leaves of the plants, some animals which die, or some insects which die, their body parts lying on the top of the soil. So they formed by the breaking down of rocks by the action of wind, water, and climate. And this process is called as weathering. Okay, so the breaking down of the big rocks into this smaller particles by the action of wind, water, and climate is called weathering. And the nature of the soil depends upon the rocks from which it is formed, and it that soil decides what type of because we know that all types of plant cannot grow in all the types of soil. There is the plant also requires specific type of nutrients and specific type of specific quantity of water, air, such things, which is found in differently in different soils. So according to that, different types of plants are grown in different soil. Now, when we see a vertical section of these different layers of the soil, we call it as a soil profile. Okay. Now, in the soil profile, you will see that if the soil profile can be seen at a place at a construction site where a big hole is dug, or a very big place is dug, so that they can do the construction work there. They can make stand the buildings there. So when they dig that big place, you will see that the layers of soil you can see there. And each layer will not have the same color, same depth, and same chemical compositions. Okay, so the vertical section which we see, that is called as the soil profile. And this different as I said, the different layers have different texture, that is color, then depth and chemical composition. So these layers are referred to as horizons, which have different color, different depth, different chemical composition. These layers are referred to as horizons, and there are horizons are categorized into different categories, and they have been given different names according to their color, depth, and chemical composition. So this is the diagram for the horizons. First, the top horizon is called A, the next one is B horizon, C horizon, and the last one is bedrock. Now, what is the difference between these horizons? We'll go in detail. Now, the uppermost horizon is generally dark in color, and it is rich in humus and minerals. Okay, because we know that at the top we have humus, so it is rich in nutrients and minerals. Then the humus makes the soil very fertile. Fertile means it makes the soil so good that plants can easily grow and provides nutrients to the growing plants. This layer is generally soft. They are soft means there is gap between the layer, between the particles, soil particles, and it is porous. Porous means the water can easily pass through each particle of that soil and can retain more water. So more amount of water can be held by that soil for a long time. So this soil, this upper horizon is called as A horizon, or the top soil. This provides shelter for many living organisms such as worms, rodents, moles, and beetles. As I said, different insects, different worms, different animals live inside the soil. The roots of small plants are embedded entirely in the topsoil. Yes, these plants which are very small, their roots don't go deep into the soil. They are on the upper surface only. So most of the roots of the small plants, you will see that it is only on the top side. It does not go to the next soil, that is the B horizon, next layer. Now the next layer is the B horizon. It has lesser amount of humus but more amount of minerals. It is hard as compared to A horizon. We have seen that the A horizon is soft and porous, but here it is hard and compact. So in this the particles are more near as compared to the A horizon. Now the third layer is made up of small lumps of rocks with cracks and crevices. So in this small balls of the like small rocks, small stones, like not very hard like stones. Rocks means they can be broken easily. So they have cracks and crevices. The crevices means gaps through which air can pass through, water can pass through, right? So they have small lumps of rocks with cracks and crevices. And the last layer is the layer, which is hard and difficult to dig with a spade. Spade is a tool which is used to dig the soil, dig the earth crust, earth surface. Okay, so three to four horizons we saw here. Four horizons we saw. A horizon, which is soft. B horizon, which is little bit hard and compact. C horizon, in which you will find small lumps of soil which has cracks and crevices. And the last one is the bedrock, which is the hardest of all these horizons, and it is very difficult to dig that part of your layers of the soil. Now next is soil types. You must have studied or heard that about sandy soil, then clay soil. Clay we have used many times when we were children, when we were small kids. We have used clay to make different shapes and such things, right? So that is also one type of soil. Clay soil, sandy soil. Sandy soil you mostly find at the near the sea. Okay, sea beaches. So sandy soil. Then the next is loamy soil. Loamy soil is a mixture of sandy soil and clay soil. Now let's see what is the difference between sandy soil, loamy soil and clay soil. Okay. Now the soil has particles. Now in the sandy soil, the particles are bigger as compared to the clay soil. Okay. So now first we'll look into what soil is. Okay, so definition of soil, you can write it as the mixture of rock particles and humus is called the soil. The mixture of rock particles and humus is called the soil. So the amount of sand and clay depends upon the rock from which it is formed. That is its parent rock. So the parent rock from which it is formed, you from that we can come to know whether that soil will have more sand or more clay or equal amount of sand or clay. So living organisms such as bacteria, plant roots, earthworms are also important parts of any soil. Okay. Now the soil is classified on the basis of the proportion of particles of various sizes. Yes. So the soil's name is given upon depending on the size of the particle. So it is said that if the soil contains greater portion of big particles, it is called sandy. So if the soil has big particles, we call it as sandy. If it has fine particles, that is the particles which are small as compared to the sandy soil, then we call it as clay soil. But if the amount of large and fine, that means big particles and small particles, is almost the same, then we call that soil as loamy soil. Okay. So there are three types of soil: sandy, clay and loamy. Sandy has big particles, clay has fine particles, and loamy has a mixture of both sandy and clay soil almost in same proportion. Now the size of the particles in the soil has influence on its properties also. So according to the size of the size of the soil, there are some properties of that particular soil. So as sand particles are big, when two sand particles come together, stick together, there is a more gap between the particles as the particles are big. So what happens? The water can, as the gap is more between two particles, the water can easily pass through. And the air, and what happens at that space, where there is space between two particles, at that space, air comes up. Okay. So it is said that sandy soils tend to be light and well aerated and rather dry. As water can easily pass through, the water does not remain in that soil. So the soil becomes dry very fast, and there is gap. The air occupies that space. So the sandy soil are called as well aerated and light. Because water does not remain, it becomes dry. So the sandy soil becomes light in weight. But it's the same opposite in the clay soil. Clay soil, the gap is very much less, so there is less amount of air. So if this gap is less, the water does not easily pass through the soil. So that is why the soil becomes heavy in weight as compared to the sandy soil. Okay, the top soil, the best top soil for growing plants is loamy soil. So a mixture of sand. The loamy soil is best top soil. That is a top soil. We saw that a horizon. That is the best soil that can be used to grow plants. So because plants require air also, the roots of the plants require air also and water also. So if it's a mixture of both of them, so the plants will get equal amount of air and water, and they will grow very well and very good. Now, loamy soil is a mixture of sand and clay and another type of soil particle known as silt. Okay, so loamy soil is a combination of sand, clay, and silt. Now, what is silt? Silt you find near the river beds. Silt you find near the river beds. Okay, the size of the silt particles is how it is not as big as sand and not as small as clay. It is a medium sized particles. Now the loamy soil also has humus in it. It has right water holding capacity for the growth of plants. So these are the reasons it has humus, and it also has the right amount of water holding. So that is capacity. So that is why this loamy soil is the best for growing plants. Now this activity sure tells you to take different types of soils and try to make something out of that soil. Now the next topic here is properties of soil. Now the properties of soil are, first one, percolation rate. Percolation rate means with what speed the water is being absorbed by the soil. Okay. So in this example, they have given that if you take a place, if you create two squares, one is having the floor of the house and other is having the kacha road, that is which contains soil. So when you pour two bottles on the same on these two different floors, then what happened? They emptied the water with the bottles, and at the same time they observed that the water on the floor flowed down and was not absorbed, while on the kacha road where there is soil, the water was absorbed. Okay. So this activity we had gone through in our online classes, and hope you all are clear with this. So I'll just go through the formula here. Okay, so the formula for calculating the percolation rate is, percolation rates unit is milliliter per minute. It's amount of water. That means how much amount of water are you taking for that experiment and the time. Okay, so in this experiment, what we are doing that we are pouring one bottle full of water into this place, and we are calculating that how much time it is taking for the whole water to be absorbed by the soil. So it is assumed here that we have taken 200 ml of water in that bottle, and that total 200 ml gets absorbed in 20 minutes by the soil. So when using that formula, we can find out the speed or the rate of percolation, that we calculate using 200, how much of water we took, divided by how much time the water took to get absorbed in the soil. So we get that with, what is the speed? It is 10 ml. So in 1 minute, 10 ml of water is absorbed by the soil. So that is the percolation rate or rate of percolation. So it is very important, this formula. Everybody should know this formula so that you can calculate the percolation rate. Now the next topic here is moisture in soil. So how to calculate the moisture, or how to find out the moisture in the soil. So one experiment is given to you. You have to take a test tube, put some soil inside it and heat that soil from below. Now what will happen, how the amount of water that is present in the soil, when you provide heat, that water will convert to water vapor and start to move up. And when it reaches to the top of the test tube, as the top of the test tube is cold, so when that water vapor comes in contact with that cool environment, it again converts to water droplets. Okay, so after the whole water vapor is evaporated from this soil, the soil will become dry. So this is experiment shows how to remove the moisture from the soil. How you can remove the moisture from the soil. The same thing you can see in the summer season. Okay, the land, a barren land or a land at the very far place, when you see in the summer season, what it looks like, it looks like shining or some vapors are moving up, like, yes. So why it happens so? Because then I'll tell you here, it's what happens. uh, on heating, water in the soil evaporates and moves up, and this is what we start. This is what I explained to you in that activity when where in a test tube that soil is being taken. Now, on a hot summer day, the vapor coming out of the soil reflect the sunlight, and the air above the soil seems to shimmer. Okay, so why it is looking looks like to us like shimmering or shining at a faraway place which is open land. Why? Because the what the from the soil, when the soil is getting heated up by the sun's heat, the water inside the soil gets converted to water vapor and it moves up, and that water vapor reflects the sunlight, and because of that the air above that place looks like shimmering. Okay, so this was an experiment to show how to remove the moisture from the soil. Okay. Now next is absorption of water by soil. That means how much water is absorbed by the soil. Now here in this experiment, they have taken some amount of water at the starting. They have taken 50 grams of soil, and in this experiment what they have did is they have taken a glass or a beaker, put a funnel inside it, and inside the funnel they have put a filter paper, and inside the filter paper at this place they have put the soil. Then what they are doing is they are using a dropper. They are putting drop. Initially we had taken one glass full of or one bottle full of water. Okay, for example 200 ml. 200 ml bottle we had filled and kept it. From that same 200 ml water we are taking it in this dropper and putting it drop by drop inside this funnel in which contains the soil. Now we have to keep on putting the water drop by drop into this funnel until the water does not reach down and put and fall into this beaker, and does not start to fall into this beaker. Up till that time we have to continuously put the water drop by drop using the dropper into this funnel which contains the soil, and you have to put the water drops at different places of the in the funnel, not at the same place, at different places in the soil you can put up. Okay, now when the water starts to drop and gets to be filled in this, start to drop on this beaker, you have to stop pouring the water from the top. Okay, through the dropper. Now how will you calculate the absorption of water? You have to minus subtract the initial amount of water. That is water, that is 200 ml, as we had took 200 ml of water. For example, we had took a full bottle full, that is of 200 ml water. Now we were using that same water in the taking that same water in the dropper and putting drop by drop into the funnel. Now, after the experiment gets completed, we have to check how much water is now left over in that bottle, that with the bottle which was containing 200 ml. So, when you subtract the initial amount, that is 200, from the final amount, the amount of water that is left out, then you get the volume of water absorbed by the soil. If you calculate in the unit milliliter, you get the volume. If you consider it in grams, you get the weight of the water, because here we are considering that 1 ml of water has a weight equal to 1 gram. Okay. Similarly, percentage of water absorbed is U minus V divided by 50. This 50 is the amount of soil that we took for that experiment. And as we are calculating the percentage, so multiply it by 100. So these all formulas: percolation rate, then volume of water absorbed, weight of water absorbed, and percentage of water absorbed. Formulas are very important. So in the questions, values can be given, volume and the amount of soil taken, and you will be asked to calculate these values. This volume of water absorbed, weight of water absorbed, and percentage of water absorbed, and also the percolation rate. Such things can be asked in a question form. So you just have to use the formula and calculate the values. Okay, now the next topic here is soil and crops. So we are going to just see that what all things are important for growing the crops other than soil, and which all types of crops can grow in which type of soil. So different parts of our country have different types of soil. Okay. Now soil is affected by wind, rainfall, temperature, light, and humidity. So these are some factors which affect the type of soil which you can find at that place. Now clay and loamy soil are both suitable for growing cereals like wheat and gram. Such soils are good at retaining water. That means they hold the water for more time. Okay, clay and loamy soil. So they are good for growing wheat and gram as they require more amount of water. Now for paddy, soils rich in clay and organic matter are having a good capacity to retain water are ideal. Okay, are very important for growing paddy. That means the rice. Okay, for growing rice, clay soil is mostly used because clay can retain more amount of water as compared to loamy and sandy. So, and rice requires more amount of water to grow. So that is why clay soil is best for growing the rice. Now for lentils like masoor and other pulses, loamy soil which drain water easily are required. So the pulses don't require more amount of water. So that is why loamy soil is used for growing these crops. Now for cotton, sandy loam or loam. So mixture of sandy and loamy soil or only loamy soil can be used for growing cotton which drain water easily and can hold plenty of air. So for growing cotton, more amount of air is required and less amount of water is required. So that is why we use sandy and loamy combination or only loamy soil. Okay. So these are the different types of crops which are grown in different types of soil. So they are very important. You should remember them. Now, crops such as wheat are grown in fine clay soil because they are rich in humus and very fertile. Okay, so this is one reason why wheat is grown in fine clay soil, very small particles of the soil. Okay, so here we complete our chapter. So I'll just quickly go through this as this is important. So when the potters make the pots, what do they do is in that soil, what do? They take the dry soil which is placed in a large tank and would be cleaned of pebbles. So the small pebbles and rocks which are, they will clean that first and then soak that soil for 8 hours. Then they mix it with the horse dung and make a duff or a ball out of it, and then they try to give shape using that wheel and everything, and with their hands they give uh, shape to the pot. And then when it is done, they what do? They burn the horse dung, helps open pores. They burn the horse dung. Why? Because the horse dung helps to open the pores in the soil so that the water could percolate out of the matkas and surahis, evaporate and cool the water inside. So that is why you can see on the pots outside water. So what happens when the hot hot steam comes out of the pot, that gets evaporated and it keeps the water inside that cool, and it also keeps the matkas from outside cool, because when the water vapor comes out and it comes with a cool environment, it cools down and it's converted into water droplets. That is the condensation process occurs, and that is why it keeps the water inside the mudcast cool. Okay, and the last topic here I would like to explain is soil erosion. So that is the removal of the topsoil from the surface of the earth is called as soil erosion by wind,